Okay, all right. I think, yeah, people are trying to settle down. All right. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone, depending on where you're joining us from. We still have a few people logging in. All right, let's give it a quick 30 seconds for them to settle down. Okay, it looks good. Okay, I think we are ready to go. Thank you for joining us today for our live webinar, How to Build a Data Revenue Growth Engine. Before I introduce our two speakers, I would like to cover a few housekeeping topics. Today's webinar is being recorded. We'll be able to share a link with you after the event is complete. We welcome you to revisit the content yourself and share it with your colleagues, of course. We also invite your comments and questions. Please look at the Q&A chat box on your screen, which is on your left-hand side. If you think of a question for the speakers at any point, just type in there and I'll take it at the end of the webinar as live chat based on the question and answers. Today's presenters are Ken Loddy from DNB and Äôll from DemandMatrix. We're going to take some learnings from this. We want you to take some learnings from this particular webinar. And I think those are the modern data stack, how the winning companies are using data to drive their go-to-market decisions, and of course, how to right-size your data stack. So for all of those who are just joining in, welcome back. And yep, I'm going to hand this floor over to Äôll, who's going to start the live discussion. Äôll, it's all yours, man.
Thanks, Ajit. And thanks everybody for joining us on at least what we're calling T-shirt Thursday here. And it's a pleasure to have Ken joining me today to talk about how do you build a kick-ass data-driven revenue stack. And Ken and I have known each other for a couple of years now. And this story is a little bit about like always be nice to everybody because you just don't know where you're going to bump into them. And so it was a couple of years ago that Ken and I were talking and I was at a different company about how do we partner together. And lo and behold, 2 years later, we are actually partnering together. And so what we wanted to do today was just have a lively discussion around what I think is a really important topic. And the reason why I think it's an important topic is because of my learnings of being in the data space for the last 10 months. And the way that my journey came about was I was at a company where we were struggling with how do we get the right leads, the right people at the right time. And then I joined a company where we actually fulfilled that promise. And then that company is a category leader now, right? But then when I was at that company, it was clear that you can get the right leads, the right reps at the right time if you have the right data points. And so I joined a data company. And then as I joined the data company, I learned that there was a lot of different pieces of the data. And then as I started working with large companies, it was just clear that there was no single data owner. And I don't know if there will ever be a single data owner, but what is and what can potentially happen is an appreciation for different types of data and the appreciation for different types of data points and how do we use them, right? And I find that at the surface level, there's a lot of information, there's a lot of noise, but at the practitioner level, practitioners are just thirsty for understanding like what do I do with this data point and where in the funnel do I use it? And so I'd like to have Ken just introduce himself a little bit, and let's dive into data as a strategy.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, Äôll, and good to be here with everybody today. So I've, as Äôll said, I've known him for a couple of years now, and each time I've interacted with him, while he's been in a different company the last couple of times, I've been at Dun & Bradstreet now for over 9 years, actually, as hard as it is for me to believe. One of the folks that actually seems to stay at single companies for periods of time. This is only my second one in my career. At Dun & Bradstreet, I've always been on the sales and marketing side of the house. I've had a couple of roles where I've led a couple of our products, including Hoovers. I've owned the partnership strategy for sales and marketing. working with partnerships like the now ever increasingly defunct data.com, our Oracle partnership, and then quite a few others, like I said, across the sales and marketing business. And I'm currently head of strategy for SNMS overall.
Terrific. So I want to make this an engaging presentation, or I guess an engaging session. So if you can hear me loud and clear, just say, hey, Asher, or hey, Ken in the question and answer session or section, or just say, hey, Asher, hey, Ken in the chat boxes, so we can see that you're around. Because while Ken and I are going to be discussing the different pieces of the data stack, we are going to also have some trivia that's going to be running in the chat boxes and the Q&A side of things. So keep an eye out on both, because we want to make this a super engaged session. So Ken, let's dive straight into it. Why is there so much buzz about data as a strategy? Like, what's the state of data right now?
No, it's a good question, right? Because it's not like data's new, right? Dun & Bradstreet, and I always joke, you have to squeeze this tidbit into every presentation, every webinar you do it as a D&B employee. But Dun & Bradstreet's been around for 175 years, and the whole time that we've been in that space, we've been about data, right? So it's not like data's a new concept. And so really, what has changed? Why is data the topic of so many presentations? Why is it starting to get its own conferences each year? Or we'll hopefully have conferences next year. And it really comes down to it's the proliferation and the variety of data that has really sprung up over the last maybe 10 years and has really just continued to absolutely take off. And this comes into the different types of data that come in, right? Whereas it used to really just be firmographic and demographic data. If you look at the slide behind us here, or below us, I guess. But now there's demographic, there's firmographic, there's technographic, there's intent data, which is a relatively new one. There's all kinds of other first-party and third-party data. All of those things start coming together, and it's gotten to a spot where a bunch of years ago, data was, well, actually, there's a stat that's a kind of a good one, right? The median number of data sources, and this comes from Salesforce, the median number of data sources used by marketers has increased from 8 in 2019 to 10 in 2020, with an expected 21 median in 2021, right? So you can see that number is still just increasing, and each vendor is not bringing in one single data set. They're bringing in multiple different data sets, right? So we've seen that just ever-growing proliferation of data that they're buying, and that's just what's coming in from the third party, not to mention the first and second party data that they're generating themselves, right? So the problem is why everybody's got to put all this strategy behind it and talk about it so much. If you just take that data and just shove it into a BI tool, or shove it into a CRM and hand it to your salespeople and say, go sell, it's useless, right? You have to be able to activate the data to get something out of it. And that does require a real thought through strategy and investment.
Superb. And so, Ken.
Yeah, maybe if I can turn this one around for you, right? So, so data. How important do you think data is towards revenue, right? Once I got it in, how does it help them drive revenue? How important is it to achieving your revenue goals?
100%. And so, as a revenue leader, one of the things that I have to do is I have to solve the same problem for myself that I'm trying to solve for other people, right? And trust me, I have the same biases as well. Is the data correct? Is it accurate? What are the sources? Like, I ask my own team this stuff because I'm a consumer of them, right? And it's extremely important for revenue teams to modernize their thinking, because in the yesteryear, revenue teams used to think in lead lists, right? Like, can I get a list? Can I get a list of contacts? Can I get a list of this? Can I get a list of that, right? There's a lot of list buying going around all over the place, right? But the modern revenue teams are thinking of data as a capability. So, like, what does that mean, right? So there's a lot of frameworks in the marketplace about, hey, think about who your customer is. Think about what you want to serve them. Think about like how you're going to serve them, right? And to me, it starts at the company narrative. Like, what is the narrative for the company? What is the core competencies of a company? Who are the customers that you're going to serve? And then let's take a look at all the different data sources that are out there that can tell us more about the customer, because as we already know, customers are well informed today. They make up their mind before they come to you. So then there's an onus on revenue teams to reach out to the customers. So if the customers are more informed about you before they come to you, you need to be more informed about them before you go to them. That is where I believe if you start looking at data as a capability, it's a mindset, right? I take it as when every year after Thanksgiving, almost everybody commits to like losing weight, right? So if every Jan 1st you're like, I'm going to know a lot more about my customers before I go talk to them, that's just a mindset, right? And then you start looking at data, and then you start looking at the different nuances. You start trying to figure out, okay, how do I get my head around it? And you start using it. The second iteration of that is amazing.
No, it's a great point, right? I mean, you keep hearing people talk about, data is the new oil, but I like that concept as a capability, right? It really, I think, highlights a little bit more because the CRM, the ERP, they're all boxes that you put data into, and it kind of unlocks the capabilities that are in there. It's a very cool analogy. I like it.
Superb. So tell me a little bit about how you recommend organizations structure their teams to most effectively activate their data.
Yeah, it's a great question, right? And one that a lot of companies that are getting started on this data journey, or maybe have been on a data journey for a while but aren't getting everything out of it. That's one of the kind of key questions they start asking. What it says, it depends both on the size of the organization that you're in, as well as the challenges that you have on the data, right? So starting first, let's think about like a bigger organization, right? So in a larger organization where you have a lot of different data sets, but you also have a lot of different teams touching the data, a lot of different teams probably contributing the data, a lot of different data sources, and then also a lot of different people who can help tackle the problem, right? In this case, and again, I'm gonna hit you with another stat. It starts with unifying, right? Identity resolution, making sure that when you look at IBM and somebody else is looking at International Business Machines, somebody else is looking at IBM Inc., right? And you're looking at it in New York and New Jersey and misspelled here in Germany, and you realize that they're actually all the same company and understand how they link together, right? You got to start there because, and this is the stat I promised, 86% of sales teams agree that unified data makes closing deals easier, and that's from LinkedIn, right? So from a larger corporation, being able to take all of those different data sets and organize the data so that it has a key single unique identifier, right? Obviously in Dun & Bradstreet, we use the DUNS number, and have that be something that can permeate all the different teams. Then you can start structuring those teams around the activation and around the goals of it. So it starts with a team focused on identity resolution and linking, and then builds on top of that into the various activation silos that you're going to build through your organization, whether it be marketing or sales or master data, et cetera. Pivoting towards a smaller organization, right? Yes, identity resolution is still important, but the realities of most smaller organizations are, first off, they probably have less data. Secondly, they can't afford, right? And that's less first-party data as well as less third-party data, right? They're buying only what's necessary. They have fewer teams, fewer tools that it's got to get connected into. And then there's also a time to market, a ROI time sensitivity that's going to exist more there than a larger organization that can afford to invest and wait a little longer to see that return. So in those organizations, I would focus there more on activation and realizing value from the data first, right? Getting to that revenue realization that you talked about, unlocking the capability. Yep. So in this case, then think about where you're going to get the most out of it. And this is going to depend on how you're set up. If you're an organization that sells by, smiling and dialing, picking up the phone and talking to people, then you want to organize your activation around that and structure it so that the data can quickly be pushed from there into either your outbound call center or your CRM or whatever you're choosing to connect. If you're driven mostly through, say, ad targeting, right? Then you want to structure it a little bit differently. You want to target your data around online identifiers and then target into a DMP, and I would structure the team around that one. So, and like I said, obviously this varies on the quality of data that you've got. If you've got a whole bunch of garbage data, but you're a small company, then identity resolution and mastering the data still comes up as a priority because garbage in, garbage out. But as a high-level overarching goal, that would be my focus.
Superb. All right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ken.
Sorry. Yeah, so maybe flipping one back to you, right? So why do you think people struggle with using advanced forms of third-party data?
Yeah, so that's a good one. It's one that I've lived through myself, and as I started to navigate all of these different types of data, there's like first-party data, second-party data, third-party data, fourth-party data. Like it was just data, and I'm like, okay, well, like I have SDRs who are amazing, I love them, but they're not advanced. I have AEs who are advanced. They just want to know when the next order is going to come in, right? Like you've got all these people, and then if you give the wrong data point to the wrong person, you're going to have friction. They can't comprehend it, and everybody's talking about sales enablement, but then they don't do data enablement, and maybe the two of those things need to come together. But the reason why the data gets a bad name is because people don't understand the different attributes. And so one of the things that I recommend people is that when you look at the types of data that you're getting, and when you work with data vendors, you're going to get like 50 different attributes. Like there's just going to be columns after columns after columns after columns in spreadsheets. Like take the columns down and just say, what are the 3 most important data points that I need to get the sales cycle to the next level, or to get engagement high up, or to give me a reason to call, or propensity to buy from me, right? Like, can I get it down to like 12 different attributes across these 4 categories of data? Then you add the other layer, right? Like a lot of times people start with technographic data from us, right? But then they'll come back and say, well, can you give me IT spend? Then they'll come back and say, well, it's interesting. And we just want to look at like all the different skill sets that are available in an account. Then they go back and say, well, my SIs are telling me that they have practices built around me, and I can look at all of the different people that they have certified on my platform. Are they even working on projects that involve our solution, right? All of this amazing data is available today, but if I give all of the data to even like Ken, you and I, like we would just be confused. We're like, well, what do we do with this? Like how, I'm just confused, right? So there's like a data journey, and for the advanced data users in the marketplace, which are some of the largest companies in the world, like they've learned this, right? But it took them time to learn this, but they started with like small steps that got them to big steps, that got them to engage conversations, that got them to ultimately the one answer that everybody wants to ask is, who's buying and when are they ready to buy from me, right? And then that from me piece, I think is important now. So I would say the noise is why data gets a bad name. Inherently, we're always we're always trained to or we're brought up, or like it's just as humans, we always are skeptical about something that we cannot see. So right away, if even somebody gives me a lead list, like I'm skeptical already because I don't know how it was built, what accuracy is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some basic ways that you can test the data, right? Like if it's a contact information and somebody is coming to tell you that, hey, they have the best contact data, then you can literally say, okay, well, show me your portal, and if your cell phone number matches my cell phone number, I have some confidence, right? In the technographic world, it's as simple as, hey, can you map my organization out and tell me what skill sets I have, right? And then same things that you can do on the intent side, right? Although the intent side is a little bit fuzzier right now because it's all based on content consumption, but there's a content consumption journey that's being built behind this. And if people can say, hey, this person started here, then came here, then went here, then went here, and that's how they got to me, then that's also another trigger event journey that proves that they're looking for somebody like you, right? So if you don't understand this and you don't fully internalize it, it's going to be tough to get the data to do something. And hence when people get frustrated because they're against timelines and deadlines, and their boss is basically saying, get this thing done, and not giving it enough time, and looking at it as a short fix, then of course, then if I have a bad experience and I'm like really mad, then Ken, I'm going to call you and I'm like, hey, DNB, like, what happened, right? And then it has nothing to do with the data, just because there was such a big time urgency that I was not fully able to appreciate and comprehend the usefulness of the data. And now I have a bad experience, and now 5 other people know about it as a bad experience. So those are, I think, a few of the reasons why data gets a bad name, as I'm able to comprehend. But what are you able to see, Ken? Like you're talking to customers and prospects and partners as well. What are some of the top reasons why why your customers say the data is bad, or I'm allergic to data.
Yeah, I mean, and you listed a couple of pretty good reasons there, right? I mean, I really liked the one, the idea about making sure that they understand and having the right timelines, right? I mean, this is true in implementing a SaaS tool. This is true in implementing data. It's a capability, like you said at the beginning. I saw actually one project where the buyer and the user were somewhat disconnected, right? So the buyer came in, made the decision to purchase the data based on what their expectations were, and then handed the data to the team that was going to go use it. That disconnect caused a lot of consternation, right? And caused them to, eventually they got there, but caused them to not realize it, or not quickly enough realize the value of the data. This would be true of any tool though, right? But that's one I want to add though, is around privacy, right? I do think data, especially in this ongoing world of privacy battles, where you have regulation coming in from California and from Europe, and the U.S. I'm sure has got some coming with with CCPA and GDPR and Privacy Shield, and all of that pushing on one side, and then you've got the marketers and the data aggregators and data collectors pushing in the other direction, trying to find ways to still create insights on a person level, right? Because you don't sell to businesses, you sell to people that work at those businesses. So you need to track that information on a personal level, right? Intent data is really not about a business showed the intent. It's about this person at the business showed that intent. And we want to get as far down and clearly identify that person without tripping any of the GDPR or CCPA violation flags. So in one side, you have people who are almost afraid to use data, right? And want to have, they're allergic, as you said, to PII. They're allergic to data that gets anywhere near something that smells like a violation of GDPR, because what is it, 1% of revenue? That's a big number, right? And something nobody wants to pay that fine. And then on the other side, you have people who are, getting, for lack of a better word, creeped out. As consumers, we see it, and as consumers, we've somewhat grown accustomed to the idea that when I go to Amazon and I search for, toilet seat covers, I'm going to see ads or toilet seat covers for the next 3 weeks, right? And that it feels like a little bit of a privacy violation. We've gotten a little bit numb to it, but the idea now of starting to see that in business, right? I remember, programmatic TV ads are a thing now, and they can target you at home on your TV as a business leader, right? And the concept of doing that, where you're starting to see the business world bleed in, you're going to see, on Sunday Night Football, you're going to see an ad for your business. That's giving, again, finding that line, and it's a really thin line, and both sides are right up against it. Finding that line where privacy meets efficacy, and people are willing to give up that privacy to get served the right ad, that's going to be a really hard thing. So that constant push from both sides, I think, is just making privacy so top of mind that whether you're in the I don't want my data out there, or if you're in the I want other people's data, but I'm terrified of terrified is the wrong word. I'm, cognizant of the effort that it's going to take me to stay on the right side of GDPR, the right side of all these litigations or statutes that are out there. It's a big investment, and it's really made people, shy away from some of that higher value data, which is unfortunate because there's really no good reason for it. The companies that are building these intent data sets and building these third-party anonymous identity resolution tools, right, like DemandMatrix, like Dun & Bradstreet, we both have some of those products. We all spend a lot of time making sure that they're collected and compiled in a compliant manner, right? And it's just something I think that companies need to work with us to get past that, and make sure that it's just being applied in a consistent and legal fashion, and then they can get over that piece of it. But privacy is going to be something that I like to joke on the consumer side, privacy is dead. It's not quite dead yet on the B2B side, but it's a very, very different landscape, and we really need to make sure that we work with our customers to make sure that they understand where those lines are and how to make sure that bad name, at least that privacy brings to data, falls away in time.
I'm going to be, I think, I want to see what my own reaction is going to be when I'm going to go pick my daughter up from school and I get an ad from Google on the way that says, "Hey, by the way, your marketing automation solution needs an upgrade." That may be the moment, but I mean, I'm joking about it. But I did a podcast with Jerry Murray who actually talked about consent moments. And then for the folks in the audience, do check out sunnysideuppodcast.com. Or sunnysideupmedia.com, because we host all of our podcasts there. But there's a podcast about that Jerry Murray from IDC did with us, and he talked about consent moment, which I thought was the best framework of dealing with data and privacy the best as a practitioner, because we should think about how do we respectfully get permission to then serve this intelligence and this other types of data up to consumers and businesses, so that they feel comforted versus this this ill will that they have. Okay, I know we're running out of time, and Ken and I can talk about these things forever, but I want to talk a little bit about like what are the latest trends that we're seeing in the marketplace, Ken. And so tell us a little bit about like what do you see on the horizon? Like where's all this data game going?
Yeah, and I definitely want to turn this one around on you, because I'm interested in your perspective on this. But in the moment, right? Obviously, digital is the hot topic. We've both hit on it with the various ways that people are tracking. And digital is an overused term, but to put a finer point on it, right? It's things like programmatic audience or ad targeting. It's things like anonymous visitor identification. It's things like B2B digital marketing, right? And what we're seeing is the B2B space slowly but steadily catch up to the B2C space, right? These are not new concepts, they're not new things, but the B2C world has been targeting left-handed golfers that drive BMWs with anonymous ads and with banner ads and all the other things that Google does for you for some time. And B2B, we're just now in the last, say, 3 maybe to 5 years, just now figuring out how to do that, and how to do that in an effective, compliant manner, where you're not just targeting, because right, you have a couple of layers of it. You want to make sure you're targeting the buyer at the business, right? Not just somebody at the business. And you want to make sure that you're targeting the buyer at the business when they're thinking about business, and also not catching their daughter on their iPad, right? Which is also always the possibility, right? A lot of wasted ad revenue gets seen by other family members using connected devices. But that's where we are at the moment, right? Where I think it's going next is going to be, you have AI, right, that is already predicting behavior, but it's predicting behavior on scene events. And you have this relatively recent intent data that's starting to say, but it's more picking up on signals and saying this person is showing behavior. If you look back at the B2C space and you look at how B2C marketing evolved, B2C marketing is at a spot now where they're anticipating your needs before you actually even have them, right? They're saying that you went out and you brought, you bought bread and you bought lettuce and tomato. So now they're going to go and they're going to present you an ad for turkey, right? Because that's your next need. Bad example, because you probably knew you were going to buy turkey too. You wanted that turkey sandwich. But that's the idea. And I think that's where we're going to see B2B going in the future, is starting to anticipate the needs of the business buyer before the business actually gets there, before they start showing signs of intent, so that you don't have to have them go find you. You find them before they've even gone out and even started looking at your competitors. But like I said, let me turn around on you. What are you seeing from your lens?
I couldn't agree more, because to me, this is like, there's this aspiration to sell, and then there's this capability to buy, right? And the data now exists, whether you use technographic data or you use firmographic data or you use intent data, right? To get there, there is the aspiration to sell, which is like what I want to do, right? But then if the person or the company just doesn't have the capability to buy, ingest those tools and ingest that software and then use it, like, it's going to lie flat, right? Because the age-old days were, hey, I'm going to go in, I'm going to find all this information about a customer, I'm going to figure out like how many resources they're available and what projects they're working on and what skill sets are available, and then I'm going to go pitch to the CEO and say digital transformation or workforce transformation, right? Like some of those, that is still going on. Only now the difference is that I can actually understand the capability of a company to ingest that software and do something with it, align it with the strategic initiatives, and then put a proposal in front of the buyer and say, here's how you go from X to Y. And that journey is what I could do. And this is why I want to hit the 1 point home is, as people are looking for data vendors, look for partners. Don't look for lead listers or just people that'll just give you a data in a massive way. Look for somebody who will work with you that does have maybe a data science arm that can work on propensity modeling or anything that helps you understand the why should I engage with these people, and then you always have the data that says when should I engage with these people. But I feel like in the future, or not so distant future, data points or the different categories of data connected together to talk about the reasons to engage or the reasons to call is going to be a much bigger motion than it was before, because the data sources or the data, let's call it pipelines, are available today, and people are starting to figure things out. But there is still a need for someone to go train everybody on how do you stitch these data points together, and then how do you consume the data, and then again, how do you scale this effort to like 500 or 50,000 sales reps?
That's a great point, right? I really, I couldn't agree more about the, about the idea of finding a good partner, because it is hard out there, right? Whether your concerns are, like I was saying earlier, around privacy, or, around stitching the data, or around figuring out where does demographic data, that's good for data management and sales acceleration, but intent really, helps digital marketing, right? That's something that a really good partner can help guide you through that one, make recommendations on the data that you should be using, make recommendations on how to link those data points together to accomplish your goals. And it is something that, anybody can send a list over, right? As you said, and it might be a high quality list, but if you can't activate it, if you can't, unlock that, and all you do is just drop it in your CRM on top of your salespeople, it's going to be the biggest waste of money. You're never going to see that ROI, and you're going to find yourself needing to go and buy the same list from somebody else who can then help you actually go and realize the activation of it.
Superb. I know we wanted to make this a short, sweet thought leadership and some action leadership session. So let's hand it back to Ajit. Ajit, are there any questions that we can answer? Otherwise, Ken and I could talk about data all day.
No, of course there are several questions, but before that, thank you so much, Ken and Asher, for it was quite an interesting session to hear out actually. And then being a marketer myself, I think I was quite totally engaged in understanding what the real world looks like. Okay, just before I get into the question answer session, as a reminder, if you still have questions that you have not submitted, please enter it into Q&A chat box. We will go through as many as time allows, because I want to also respect, because we are a little overboard on the time. Let's take the first one. I think, Ken, you would love to answer this. How has work from home changed how B2B data is collected, basically? So how has work from home changed how B2B data is collected, basically? Did you get that?
Yeah, totally got it. And it is a challenge, right? It's a challenge that we've obviously had to face, because, while the reality is Dun & Bradstreet, as an example, still headquartered in 103 JFK Parkway, and sporadically I'm aware of a couple of people being there. I'm clearly not there at the moment, and there's a non-zero chance that door is going to swing open at any moment, and my kid's going to come running through. So, right. Which doesn't happen. So, in some respects, it's the same, right? The business is still headquartered where it is. So from a legal entity point of view, no change. But as I said earlier, it's not about, when you're selling, it's not about selling to the brick and mortar. I can't go to Dun & Bradstreet's headquarters and sell to them anymore, because there's no people there, right? I need to now identify where the people are. And we all know, right? You don't recognize a phone number, you don't answer it. So calling their desk phones that probably ring through to their laptops these days doesn't help. It's about being able to target them where they are, and identifying people in their home environment, whether it be using the fact they're on VPN or cookies or other unique identifiers. That's something that the intent companies and like DemandMatrix, like DMB, that we've been able to do. And it's changed how we collect the data. It's changed how we've had to process the data. But the result is still the same. We're able to target, we're able to identify those people where they work, whether that be in a home like it is now, in a hotel in, hopefully a couple of months when we're all back to travel, or be in your office.
Can't agree more. Asher, do you second that, or you got like some more things to add to this particular question?
No, I agree, and I guess in the interest of time, I want to make sure if there's another question that we answer that, so that we can make this as impactful for our listeners.
Sounds great. And I think this one goes to you, Asher, because you would definitely like this one. So understanding third-party data is great, but how would you define the first-party and second-party data?
Yes, it's in the definitions, you know. This is part of the problem, right? So I would say
Right.
say most people are just going to be consuming first party and third party data. There's this nuanced second party data, but the first party data is any data that comes from sites or properties that you as a business own. So your LinkedIn page, if it's pushing data back to your website, that's first party data. If your website, your chatbots, your sales team's signatures, right? Like any type of data that you own and from your properties is first party data. Second party data is a little bit around, I would call content consumption or the content syndication. So if you worked with, let's say, an analyst firm, and then that analyst firm put a blog out there, and then they captured all that data, that's second party data. And because you still have a relationship with how that data is being captured. And then third party data is completely anonymous. Like you have no idea. You go someplace and figure out that there's 50 people that are looking for a job through a job website. That's completely third party data. You have no relationship with them. So, and I'm pretty sure like as marketers became more advanced, they're going to come up with fourth party data, fifth party data, sixth party data, right? But my encouragement is going to be, don't get caught up in all this stuff. Just got caught up in like, what's the problem we're trying to solve, which is how can we be better informed about the customer the same way that they're better informed about us. Because it's not a battle, it's actually an augmentation, right? Like they're trying their efforts to like learn more about us, we're trying our efforts to learn more about them. And when we meet, and if we can both have the same type of information, we're synchronized, it just takes a lot of time that will be used in data digging, and we'll spend more time into data understanding and then taking action. And then that action will just move people forward. And as you take steps to move forward, you will realize the impact of all of that data.
I think fourth party
All
data
right.
is going to be data from the future. That's my bet.
I'm sure it could be. Okay. I think I'm just going to take one last question. So I think, Ken, that goes for you, of course. What is the first tactic you recommend that will help you to get quick win off your data?
Yeah, probably the first one is think about your activation, right? Think about how you want to activate that data, and set those goals accordingly, right? If your activation channel, like I said earlier, is through your sales team, then set the data up for your sales team and how they're going to consume it and the data that they need to go see, right? And again, if you look at the graphic below, you know, if your goal is about digital marketing, then you need to make sure that you got firmographic information, you got technographic information, you got intent information, right? If your goal is if you're going to activate through the sales acceleration channel, focus on the demographic, focus on the firmographic, right? Pick the relevant data set, structure it in the way that matches your activation channel, and then you can start pushing it through there. Fast follow on that one, like I keep kind of harping on, is identity resolution, is making sure that you uniquely tie those together. But if I had to pick just one, think through activation first.
Okay, I think, all right, I think we are actually in respect of time. I think we are already 10 minutes above, so we're just gonna stop. So I would really thank you, both of you, for being here on the platform of DMX webinar, DemandMatrix webinar. I appreciate your time. Any last words for our audiences, basically? Quick one.
Ken, I'll let you go first.
I hope to see everybody very soon at trade shows and out there in the real world. Until then, please be safe and looking forward to it. And thanks to Asher and Ajit for hosting.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us. And my hope will be that you do not buy lead lists, but you actually care about your data enough to work with a partner who can actually help you understand what the data means, so you can have happy sales and marketing people.
Perfect. All right. So thank you everyone for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed the session that we had. We are making sure that this session was recorded and we'll send it to you maybe by tomorrow or something. Expect an emails coming from our side. One more. Thank you. Stay tuned to us. All right. Have a good day ahead. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.